What is my top 10 light novels as of 2022? Well, let's find out, shall we?
That man and his manga.
Well, it's been a year since I did my top 50 light novels as of 2021. And I was going to do that again this year, or I was trying to go a little bit further and do top 100. But I think that might have been a little bit excessive. I'm not even sure if I've even read 100 different light novels. I'm getting there. So I thought I'd do my top 10 favourite light novels and share them with you. Things have changed in a year, so join me as we go on a little discovery and see what my favourites have been over the last year.
We start with the most recent read on this list, Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut. Now, I wasn't sure whether to include this one, but honestly, the first volume impressed me so much that I feel I should.
Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut tells the story of the space race. However, in an alternative world, the not USSR are going to win the space race by any means necessary. They will defeat that pesky United Kingdom. And yeah, it's quite dark because what they're going to do is dark.
In the past, they've only tried using dogs in space and aren't quite ready to send humans into space. I mean, killing a human in the name of science, that would be awful.
But what happens if there was some kind of loophole, a technical loophole, where they could send somebody up into space who was pretty much the same as a human, but not quite a human? That way, if they died, well, a human hasn't died, so it would be completely okay, wouldn't it? If only a loophole existed.
Vampires. They get a young vampire girl named Irina and start preparing to send her into space, knowing that she's probably going to die. A young cosmonaut hopeful is put in charge of training her and soon discovers that despite everything, vampires aren't much different from humans.
There's a lot of darkness in this title, and much like the 86, it is a very human darkness. A lot of horrible things happen in this particular volume, but there's a lot of really nice moments as well. There's a lot of really nice slice of life moments. So at one point you're going, oh, this is horrible too. You know, these two characters, they are actually quite cute together. And that's what makes the series work a little bit. At least for me. I just can't wait for more volumes to come out.
Next up, we have the series that I have been absolutely adoring over the last few months, and I mention at every given moment, Infinite Dendrogram. Imagine a light novel series almost on the level of One Piece with the amount of world building that it offers. This is Infinite Dendrogram.
And honestly, this one is a really, really great read.
The story follows our protagonist, Ray Sterling, who delves into the world of Infinite Dendrogram, a game that promises a realistic experience. The first volume follows what you'd expect of a fantasy MMO title, before the world is quickly opened up to us, and man, does this one open up.
There is a lot of characters in this series, and a lot of them are very well developed over the course of the series. More characters get added, there's a lot of motivation, there's a lot of backstory. You will have entire volumes that focus on just random characters to make them more interesting, and it really works. There's a lot of care and attention gone into this one to make it the best it could be.
Sometimes entire volumes are focused on the side characters, and it's written well for it. It's like someone went up and wrote volumes focused on the likes of Django or Capone Beige. It makes you care a great deal about a lot of the characters, which is why it's on my list. Not a lot of series can boast what the saga of Tanya the Evil is doing, an isekai in which one overpowered human is constantly outclassed in a never-ending war. But Tanya the Evil manages it.
Reading very much like a war memoir, there's a lot of information getting put to you in this. But honestly, it's interesting. It's incredibly interesting, and it's really fun for that aspect.
Basically, the plot is a young man upsets God and is reborn as a young, talented girl on the wrong side of World War I. She is quickly enlisted and rises through the ranks of the not German army in a war that she is never ever going to win, but can never back down from.
There are a lot of parallels to real world wars, and that's what makes this one interesting. The author has taken from actual historic information just to make this one a lot better. You are going to learn some historic facts while reading this.
The thing is with Tanya is that she's struggling to survive in a war that she's just never going to win. And despite being incredibly powerful and a natural leader, it's a breath of fresh air to see a series focus on the desperation and intense feelings of one who just wants to run away from it all, but is just in far too deep. I'm really excited to see how this one's going to turn out. Every volume is just a joy to read. It's one of my favourites. Rascal Does Not Dream is an interesting one. It's one that had an anime adaptation a few years ago, but I never really see many people talking about the light novel itself, surprisingly.
It might just be the fact that a lot of this has already been adapted into the anime and was done so a few years ago, and only now it's actually coming across new content not contained in the anime and the movies.
But don't let that deter you, because this is a fantastic read.
It follows a young man who keeps coming across situations called adolescence syndrome, and this can range from many different things. From a popular film star who just wants to be invisible for some time, to a bullied girl who has mental and physical scars on her body. It's really interesting.
This is a series that has made me laugh and cry on the exact same page. It's so incredibly good and not enough people are talking about it.
Next up is time for some comfort food. With Bo Fury, I don't want to get hurt, so I maxed out my defense, and this is one that I really came to love over the last few years.
A young girl is convinced by her best friend to start playing an MMO game. However, not wanting to get hurt, she puts all of her stats into vitality and thus breaks the system.
And you know what? She's just having so much fun with everything, which is important. You know, it's quite weird because I really like reading light novels about MMOs. However, I'm not really a huge fan of playing MMOs and the whole subscription model. So anybody that does look like they're enjoying that, I always appreciate it.
Maple becomes insanely overpowered with nobody being able to hurt her, and any attempts by admins to fix this issue simply results in her becoming even more overpowered. It's really fun. Bo Fury is a very comfy title, full of fun while having a lot of interesting parts to it, and it's always a pleasure to look forward to a new volume releasing. This one has been such a really good fun one this year.
The next light novel is one that it's an isekai, and it's, you know, the trend of being reborn as something. Slime, dragon, vending machine. But this one is about getting reborn as a spider. So what?
So I'm a Spider So What follows our main character who is reborn as a spider, the lowest of the low, battling to survive in the harsh world around her. But while she battles for survival, her classmates are reborn as the protagonists.
This is another one in which I kind of feel the anime ruined any traction it was going to get in terms of the West. The anime started off really well and, I don't know, there was a few little issues. And unfortunately, I didn't really see many people deciding to move on to the light novel after checking out the anime, which is a huge shame because this one is really good.
This one is an absolute joy to read. Each volume just so happens to get better than the last, and I can't wait for more to come out. We get enough from each character to enjoy them, but not anything that outstays its welcome.
This one gets a little weird as the title progresses, but never bad. And always interesting. It always keeps you wanting to come back for more, which is always a good thing. It's time to once again put a series in my top 5 that I absolutely love, yet I've only read 2 volumes of it, and keep forgetting to read more. Spice and Wolf.
One of the things I've really discovered over the last few years is that even if a series is lengthy, it doesn't mean I'll enjoy it more. I also discovered that I'm really bad at keeping up with series that already have most of their volumes released. But Spice and Wolf is a really good one. Spice and Wolf is about a merchant named Lawrence who discovers Hollow, a wolf goddess, and upon befriending her, decides to take her home to the north, and thus begins their journey. But Lawrence needs to make a living, and thus uses his merchant knowledge to earn some money.
That's right.
It's a series about economics and romance, but it does both incredibly well. The series has been beloved for so many years, and quite rightly so.
Now, this is one that I got into years ago with their fantastic anime, which I think we're getting a season 3 of soon. And someday I promise I will actually go back and read the entire thing. Much like with High School DxD, and Data Life, and Magical Index, and ReZero. I've got quite a lot to read.
The next title is Ascendant of a Bookworm, a title that was in my top 50 last year, but over the last few months I've really getting into this one hard, and therefore ends up rather high on this list. Quite rightly so.
This one is so well written. Honestly, it is so good. It is about a young girl who absolutely adores books. And in a cruel twist of fate, she is killed by books and is isekai'd into another world where books aren't quite as common. Even worse, she's been born as a poor, sickly child. She will never afford books.
But that changes as she clings to life and her ambition of reading books. Our main character, Mine, slowly turns the world on its head, becoming stronger in herself, but also changing the world with a mass of inventions.
One of the things I love about this one is that there is so much world building. Honestly, there is an absolute immense amount of world building. But it's all good. And it's not kind of done in a way that doesn't make sense. Things that happen later on in the series and parts of the world aren't necessarily stuff that you would see early on in the series. It all makes sense. So when the main character, Mine, when she comes across them, it all makes a little bit more sense. And you discover the world alongside Mine. Now that sounds like something that's par for the course, but once you start understanding it, it does make a lot more sense. It's really well done. And honestly, I love this one.
This series has had me hooked for the last few months, and honestly, if it wasn't for just adoring the next two series even more, it would probably be number 1 on my title list.
Oh, difficult choice between number 2 and number 1. I always see this every single time, and I always flip-flop between my decision, but let's face it, number 2 this year is Overlord.
Overlord is just that series that I just adore so much. Being one of the very early light novels I got, it got me into the series and got me into reading once again. And honestly, I feel this one has gone from strength to strength. It follows a series about a man who ends up trapped in an online game at the end of its lifetime. He sets out on trying to find his friends. The twist? He's basically the final boss.
Now, this is about the main character, Ainz Al Goon. However, we do get a lot of stuff between other characters. What I like about this one is, while it's an overpowered character, a lot of the series is other characters, them preparing themselves against Ainz. You think they might have a slight chance, but then Ainz and the rest of his crew just rock up and just destroy them all.
Normally with overpowered characters, I feel we see them just squash everything with little resistance, and that's about it. We do get that in Overlord, but also so much more.
Overlord has just gone from strength to strength for me. while we only get one volume a year, it's always a real good treat and it's always something worth looking forward to. As the series is starting to wind down now, there's not much left to really tell, but I'll be here until the end.
Now, before we talk about my number one, here are a few more titles that only just didn't make the final cut. All great titles, I just love them a little less than these ones that's in the top 10. They are ReZero, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, 86, Restaurant to Another World, and Toradora. Now the question is, what is your favourite light novel or your top 10 favourite light novels? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, remember to leave a like and consider subscribing.
And finally, you knew it was coming. Konosuba.
Honestly, I can sit down and admit that Konosuba may not be the best written title, but it's incredibly good enough. And you know what's also incredibly important when considering my top 10 favourite light novels? It's always a blast to read. A young man dies in a rather pathetic way. He is offered a special treat when he goes to another world. And what does he pick? The goddess, who turns out to be pretty useless. Added to his party a masochistic tank, a Chunibyo mage with an affection to explosion magic, and you have a series that, in my eye, is pretty much perfect.
Over the years, I've read a lot of good light novels and a lot of gag light novels, but I'm going to be honest, none really do it as much for me as Konosuba did.
It refuses to take itself seriously, yet also does so by giving the characters enough development that you want to know more about them. Not only that, but the stuff it pokes at, basically the entire genre or the absurdity of JRPG tropes, still works, despite not knowing about what it's poking fun at.
Honestly, Konosuba is probably always going to be my favourite. Which makes these videos a little bit weird, but hey, at least I put other things in to make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to be honest, the fact that this ended this year really did boost it up for me. It ended perfectly for me. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? What is your favourite light novels? Let me know in the comments, and well, if you like this, leave a like, and if you didn't like it, feel free to dislike it. And why not subscribe? Go help the channel out. It's absolutely free. And why not check out another video that's up here. See you over there.